Google invested in my company, so went Google back company gets sued. So that's what happened. Do you know what? Like, I just laughed.
What?
Yeah, I thought it was funny. Yeah.
Welcome to Happy Millionaire,
A show about how to make profit with a positive impact.
and stay happy along the way.
I stepped down as CEO 2.5 years ago, and I've had so many people ask me why did I do that.
Hold on, which company?
This was Yieldify.
Okay.
So I was CEO of Yieldify for 7 years. It was literally my dream job, and from the outside, it looks like, running a tech startup is incredible. And why the fuck would you leave that job? What would make you step down, right? And it's actually probably the best decision I ever made. And I just want to go through that journey because there's a lot of things people probably don't appreciate that happens in a startup. Unless you run a company, you probably know these intricacies. And I'm willing to be like super open about it and just tell you guys really the good and the crap that goes on in a startup. So a bit of context. I was running Yieldify for 7 years. I was the co-founder with my brother and I was CEO. And it was literally the dream job I wanted, right? I had offices around the world in like London, New York, Sydney, Singapore. I was like traveling around the world. Team was roughly about 200 folks, and we got funded by Google and SoftBank. Like, on the outside, this is like, you are the ultimate tech entrepreneur, right? You're going on that incredible journey. And honestly, it's probably on like year 4 or year 5, there was just something that, I don't know, something didn't feel right. It was just, I was no longer enjoying it. And when I reflect back, it was basically, you have to be on 24/7 if you are a tech CEO. Like, it's 24/7. Like, literally, your day starts the moment you wake up. Yes, there's all these little trends now where, put your phone to the side. But like, if you really want to make the most out of every minute, like you are on. Like, because you got some guys in America who've come in, they may have something urgent, or if you got someone in Sydney, like they're still in the office, so they only have a few hour windows. It's important I show that I'm there for them, right? So you're just on 24/7. And there's loads of little things that people don't realize happens in a tech startup, right? You've got a big team, and let's just say, there's 252 working days in the year, right? And let's say you got a team of 200. That means like every single day during the week, it's very likely it's someone's birthday, right? And birthdays are really important, and I appreciate birthdays, right? So, I like to be, I could just send a quick message, like a quick Slack or something, go happy birthday, but like, if you want to give a personal touch, you need to go over there and have a little chat, like, hey, what are you doing on your birthday? What's going on? And I like doing that, right? But as you start getting bigger, it starts becoming a bit ingenuine, right? Because I'm just there, I'm like, look, I got about a bazillion emails I need to go through. I got a bazillion meetings to go through. Like, hey, buddy, how's your birthday? Yeah, cool, all right. Like, it's just that personal touch gone. And then at the same time, like, as humans, each person in our business, had a personal thing going on. Like, maybe they want a promotion, or maybe, they've got a complaint. And like, so as the business scales, you can't do that. And yes, you've got a team around you, but as a CEO as well, you want to try to be there for those right moments. And it just got to a point where like, there were just too many things I was handling, right? You're still trying to raise money. You're still trying to launch a product. You've got all these people, let's call them people responsibilities you got to do. And it just, like, I didn't really have a life. Like, I was just working 24/7. Like, even when I was out with you, I remember I'd check my email sometimes, like, person A, we've got client issue, right?
Yeah.
They want to potentially no longer work with you, or hey, there's a potential issue with the person. So like, you just got to be on 24/7, and certain things are really important where you just got to be you got to be right there in that moment. So
that you lost that sort of personal touch with your employees, which I know you as a very personable person who loves to have a chat, loves to make sure people are happy. Yeah. That being, if you separate yourself from that element of the business, that would have been like a big issue, I reckon, and something that you wouldn't have liked leaving behind. I mean, even if I think about it from the lens of like my small company, I love the fact that I can check in with my employees and just, see how they're doing, ask them about their holidays. Part of that is that the enjoyment of startup life. And as you scale, you lose that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that personal touch is not gone. You've got also the level of impact you can make is much smaller. Like, if you just launched a product, it's just the X factor, this big impact element has gone. You're just going to be making a small little impact in loads of different places. But I know I'm like one of those people that wants to see the result as well. I like to see it, and you just don't see it as much in the big company. So all of these things led me to do a big reflection. And I remember I was in New York, so I was living in New York for quite a while, and I remember you've been to New York, and a lot of people probably have been to New York. New York is absolutely crazy. It's 100 miles per hour. It's like everything's on. You go outside, you got the taxis, you've got people just making noise. It's just is just mental. And I just promised myself one weekend, I'm going to keep my calendar empty on a weekend, which is actually really difficult to do because there's always a bazillion things going on. And I said, I need some me time, right? I need to just work out what the hell I'm going to do in my life because I was no longer enjoying it, right? It was just got to a point where I was probably quite miserable and I could feel it. And, we all know those moments. And so what I did was I wrote down all the different things I do as CEO. And what I figured out was there was a few things I really liked. So I liked doing the strategy piece. I really liked the branding elements. I liked hiring key people. And like those bits I just loved, but the day-to-day responsibilities, and yes, I could have probably hired people around me to help me, but as CEO, you still have to be quite involved in day-to-day operations. And that just wasn't that interesting for me. And not interesting, just my desire of that bit just went, right? I'd probably, when I reflect back, I probably hit all my egoic dreams, and there was a bit of ego in me probably, like deep down. And that bit just all went. And what I found was there was this like sidestep move, which was the right move for me. And that was actually me becoming a board member. So that's what I did. I transitioned out from being CEO. We hired and recruited a phenomenal CEO who's now running the company. And I became a board member. And that way I could still do what I loved. And now it's giving me this whole pocket of extra time that I can then use on things that I'm really passionate about. And it was the best move I ever made because it gave me more me time. I'm still part of the business. I'm still actually the largest shareholder of the business, but I'm just no longer involved day to day. And it was a side that I called it the sidestep move for me, and it was the right move for me.
I want to ask you actually, because in my mind, a founder of a company, the true entrepreneur who has the sort of bravery to start a company and the small scale, is that a natural CEO? I don't know. I was going to ask you actually whilst you were talking, are a lot of your colleagues in a similar boat where they've started companies, but the day-to-day running, when it's got to that scale where you've got multiple offices around the world, you've got all this investment, you're revenue generating, and then it just it transitions to a different place in the company's trajectory, doesn't it? Where it's just all about operations and making sure that you're doing things strategically from a different way. Is that something that a lot of people do? They put in a CEO and then they do some other aspects of the business?
So a few things. There's two moves, right? The classic move is getting a COO, right? So you bring a COO and he can take that key bit of responsibility, right? So that works, right?
Is that early stage? Is that
yeah. So really, when the perfect time is probably when you're at. There's two steps, right? If you've got a CEO who can take it to 10 million revenue, then that's great. And that's probably like in like Series B phase, that's probably like four years in, right? Then it's a good time. Because at that point, you've probably got about 100 people and you need to put some real operations in. Otherwise, it's just not going to scale. The thing just breaks. It's like startups they are very fragile. People think, oh, these epic companies and they got a fancy logo. But no, they're super, super fragile, right? And it needs this architect who can essentially put the pipes in. And I've seen companies put it in too late and it's already too late, and you can put it in too early and you've just got too much processes. So, it's important you put a good COO in, and that can give that business the next, like for the mountain, it's that next part of the mountain, like that climb. So otherwise you might have a CEO who is just a crazy operator, right? And you have that, right? And that works as well. It's just, it depends on the startup, depends on the market, depends on the person. There's so many elements. And, for me, it was actually me as an individual. Like I just lost my interest. Could I have gone further? Yes, I probably could have. If my heart was still on fire and love of it. Yeah, I could have. But it just needed, the sidestep was the right move.
Yeah, but then you went on to start a whole bunch of other companies. So I think you're still exercising that sort of desire to do what you like doing on a day-to-day basis. But that would have to be in a different company because Unify sort of outgrew. I think it's right to say it outgrew you. It got to a stage where you weren't really enjoying the elements of the CEO role, whereas being a CEO of a smaller company, I think, is probably more attractive.
Yeah, I think it's. I'd say outgrow probably could be a right word. I think it's just just my passion and interest in startups in a big company just doesn't excite me.
Yeah.
Like right now, even if someone offered me, hey, you can be CEO of like Uber or like, Facebook or whatever, like, mate, I would never do it.
No, definitely not.
I would never do it. I would just say, sorry, Facebook. But yeah, like, any cool tech company, honestly, like I got no interest, man. I can't deal with politics, structures, all this sort of stuff. It's it literally, I get it's probably like me getting punched in the face about 7,000 times. I'd rather take that.
My other mate, also called Jay, who you've met on the Stag, he is wired differently. He's an operator, right? He is someone who can go into a company, you know, dive into the P&L, dive into like the structure of the HR, do all that kind of stuff that I honestly I find very boring, but there's some people that absolutely love it. He's that kind of person, right? And that's why he works for a big MNC, and it's, you know, all about tax efficiencies basically on a global level. But he knows himself he's never going to start a company. He's never going to start his own business himself. He knows where he fits in terms of that cog in the wheels of a machine, and he's like, no, that's me. And so I think I'm more on the side of starting the companies, but I realise at some point when I do get to that level, I'm not going to be the CEO of my company either.
That's great if you know. Yeah. Like I didn't know. So, you know, in that situation, you got a few different things, right? So I've seen some CEOs go and do it again, and that's pretty cool, right? It gets a certain scale, you know, they may get it to 100, 200, may even IPO it, and that's awesome, and they go do it again. They just love it. They love that whole process, right? You get some folks that just want to start investing, right? So now they just set up their own like venture firm, or you know, they just start investing the money they've made, right? So I did that for a bit, but that just didn't excite me because I didn't feel like I was making an impact. And then so what I've got a startup studio. So my vision here is I want to create and incubate companies, like one company a year, maybe two, but most likely it's one. I don't want to go work crazy hard and go nuts, but you know, depends, it might change, right? But I like to incubate because I get to involve, I'm right now involved in the exact like, well, at the inception, right? And that's what I love. So that's involved in all the branding, the launch, the first product, hiring the first people. Like that's the bit I get all jazzed about.
That's the exciting bit, I'll be honest.
That's exciting bit. And you know, my plan is to, you know, really build the number one startup studio in the UK, and very much focus on like software companies. That's what I'm in, but I will probably diversify and change it. But you know, that's my that's where I want to go, and it's been great. Like the journey with Bliss Growth has been awesome, and you know, I've had loads of other entrepreneurs come up to me and, you know, ask me questions about it, and hopefully it's inspired a few other people to go down that path as well.
Do you ever see failed entrepreneurs, who I'm sure you've met along the way, go back to sort of the 9-to-5 schedule, or like, do they just go the other way and they just keep on trying, keep on like taking those hits? Yeah,
I've seen quite a few. So I feel it's a good option. Like if imagine you're now, you know, you start your journey at, I don't know, in your early 20s, and you go and build a startup for 5, 7, 10 years, right? You're now in your 30s and you might have kids and you've got family. Like at this moment, can you take another punt, right? Can you take a punt? And I've seen loads of my friends say, no, let's go let's go join a big company. Let's take all my experience. Let's go in a sector which I was previously in. And this, by the way, this is a great move as well. This is an unbelievable move for someone who, you know, has had some experience in a fast-growing startup. Go to maybe a corporate job, right? There's no harm, or a bigger company, and bring that expertise in. And trust me, you get a shit ton of money for that experience. So like you can cash in on your experience. And I've seen guys get, you know, good equity in like, even let's say you go for a later stage company. You might become like a general manager, because actually when you have a startup and you've been managing 3, 5, 10 people, the skills you build, you're like, you know, you're a CEO, so being a general manager or like launching a product for a big company, like they love that sort of skill set. So I've seen a lot of people make that move. It's a great sidestep to use the same concept again. So yeah, that's why I do think if you go down the start path, like things just happen. Like I just feel doors can open. Like don't get me wrong, it is really risky as well. But I do think people sometimes underestimate the moves you can do if you do fail as well.
I reckon it comes down to your motivations as well, right? A lot of people are motivated by money and consistency. And if they are being motivated by that, then, you know, actually going to a corporate job is probably much better. Entrepreneurship is so freaking hard. And the other thing I think is I've been reading this book called Wanting. I've literally just started. It's an amazing book. We're both gonna have to read it, and we're gonna discuss it in the podcast, because it's all about the theory of mimetic behavior, or the mimetic theory. There was a philosopher called René Girard, and he talks about this in I think it was 1950s. He was a lecturer at Indianapolis, and then he went on to some other places. But basically, his theory is that we're all mimetic beings, where we like to see other people and try to emulate what their behavior is if they are seen to be successful or socially desirable. Right now, being an entrepreneur, being a Mark Zuckerberg, or maybe like 2018 Mark Zuckerberg or whatever, is seen as like, the goal. That's like, oh, you want to be that kind of person, raising money, fast growing companies, all that kind of stuff. I think we're selling a dream, not reality, because the reality is it's freaking hard to break through. We'll have to discuss this on the podcast, I think, because this also applies to happiness, or a perception of what happiness entails.
I'm hoping with this podcast as well, we can really shine a light on what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Like try share our personal stories. I think when we bring on our guests, I want to go deep on all the shitty parts, and also the good parts. Like I would never ever change my decision on like me going down this path ever, but I think providing some context to folks would be a bit of a game changer. So
one of my mates who's CEO of a company called Excel, they're a D2C coffee brand. I don't know if I've discussed them before on the podcast, but anyway, I should declare I'm an advisor and I've got shares in the company. But we were having a conversation, because I see him as like basically creating the next Red Bull. It's basically a healthy coffee brand. So they roast their coffee such that the polyphenols in the coffee are heightened. And coffee is a very healthy substance, taken in moderation. It's got like an amazing array of like thousands of different polyphenols. And they know about that, and they've roasted it to basically maximize the health benefits. And he's getting himself sort of intertwined in like wild swimming, outdoor lifestyle. He lives and breathes outdoor lifestyle. The reason why I think about it is because he was an accountant for many years prior to this, and had this sort of entrepreneurial urge, and left the corporate wheel to like the corporate sort of ladder to go and pursue his dreams. And we were chatting the other day. I think he's got like 15 to 20 employees, hasn't taken on that much investment, growing the company, is getting to like good scale at the moment. And he already knows that he doesn't want to be CEO of the company long term when it gets to that level of Red Bull. And I see like Excel being the next Red Bull. It'd be pretty amazing to watch his trajectory, because it's pretty fast growth. But I think it's good to have sort of like that mindset. If you are interested in entrepreneurship, if you are interested in starting a company, knowing what your strengths are based on what your desires. And I think that the branding and all that kind of stuff, that's really fun, and if you can get through that stage, that's awesome. But when it gets to the point where you're dealing with all the sort of the corporate office woes, that's CEO level. That's different. Stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I hear what you say. So I'm curious. Like, I want to try his stuff. I want to see what happens to me when I have his stuff. So
yeah,
bring me a batch. Bring me a batch.
We'll get him on the pod. He's awesome. He's really good.
Awesome.
He's good.
I love that.
He's good.
All right. So what have you got, Roops? Far away. What have you got?
What have I got? Well, I wanted to talk about this podcast actually to start off with, because we haven't at this point pushed anything live, right? So we don't really know what our audience is. We know what
I think it's episode 9 as well.
Well, we banked a couple, and we're putting it out there, but we made the strategic decision to.
It's like batch cooking, right?
We've batch cooked it. We've done a massive batch cook.
It could be a really shit set of cookies or whatever it is.
Exactly. You're going to eat this for the rest of the week now, a couple of months. So anyway, we batch cooked it, and we don't actually know what our audience is, and it's kind of like starting an app with no insights, no feedback, like no metrics whatsoever. So I'm kind of curious as to how we're actually going to garner that feedback in the first instance, and what we should do with that and how we should react to it. So obviously we want to see comments, we want to see topic headlines, we want to see sort of like what people's experiences are as well, so we can sort of like go back to back on those. But I'm curious as to where else we're going to find these sort of metrics to guide our kind of conversations, other than our own musings week by week. Because I have random musings, and this is a very good outlet for it. Because on my entrepreneurial journey, I'm just like, what do I want to talk? What am I actually being happy? Am I actually like enjoy it and being fulfilled, or should I go back to medicine? There's a thought that I have like regularly.
It's like a little therapy session for ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've done it as a really good point. Well, I guess looking back at your doctor's kitchen, right? You were, on that piece, you were really one of the first people to start putting out content around like food as medicine, right? So how did you like take that information and help pivot you?
That's a really good point. So I started my podcast in end of 2017.
Yeah.
So at that point, I had like 2.5 years of chatting to people via social media, via YouTube, reading comments, reading DMs, all that kind of stuff. Plus, on the back of that, I had I think I must have had like 7 or 8 years clinical experience at that point, you know, in the clinic, chatting to people, figuring out what their woes were, figuring out what their behavior insights were, you know, how am I going to motivate this person to eat well, eat better, you know, what are the strategies that I can sort of utilize in the clinic to give them. And I basically reflected that in the podcast because I kind of already knew, like, you know, what people were struggling with. And so when I started, it was like off the bat, it was like already, okay, yeah, people vibe with it because I kind of already had that understanding. Whereas this is kind of different. This is new for you as well, right?
I've made this totally new. So yeah, like I think after we've been chatting for a few years, we're like, dude, let's do something together. And this is it. Yeah. Like this whole concept of us two doing a podcast really started when me and Amit hung out, right? We always hang out, and we talk such random shit. And like Amit sometimes goes, dude, do you know what? That's really good. Like we should talk about, like someone else should probably listen to this.
This is great content.
Yeah. So I feel, you know, like, I don't know, I see this as just a couple of mates talking about random shit, and hopefully it's valuable, right? And there's some lessons, and they have a bit of banter along the way. And you know what? If they get a few good few takeaways, like that's sick. Like that, then I think we've done our bit, right? Yeah. And that's it. So I think I do. So when I do now go out a little bit, and again, I've got no bloody idea how good this is. Good. Like if any of our stuff's, I don't know how good this batch is, right? And I just ask people, hey, well, like, you know a little bit about me. Well, what bits are you quite intrigued to hear more about? So that's where I've been getting my topic so far.
I'd be interested. I'd be really interested in the critical comments. So I think the critical comments are the ones that you actually want to read and actually ask yourself the question: is this genuinely something that it is an issue that I probably know deep down, or is it someone venting? You know, there's a fine line between those two. And I actually found out quite a bit through my own podcast. So, you know, when halfway through my pod, I started doing like a Saturday kitchen style, like where I'd cook for the guests and, you know, I'd find out what they like and I'd healthify it. And it was great for video, terrible for the podcast because all you heard was just chopping in the background. And so I had all these comments. I was like, yeah, great podcast, great content, but all I can hear is chopping. He's got to stop doing this. And so we canned that at the end of it. So, you know, there's going to be some feedback, I reckon, like some annoying things that we've probably already done because we've batch cooked this, that people are going to point out. And so, yeah.
Let's see what happens.
I'd be interested in how you deal with that criticism.
Do you know what? In Yodify, I received, like, as CEO, there's so much crap you get in so many different places. So you get like Glassdoor reviews. I remember I was on the newspaper a few times for like good and bad stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I got like...
What was the bad stuff?
We had this company in the US that basically was trying to sue us. So, you know, I was on the front page of the FT.
Oh, wow.
So I've had like loads of like people going after me in weird ways. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I think I'll be okay, but let's see.
What's that like? Are there people that have gone after you in the past that you now know and like sort of?
Yeah, most things. Like I guarantee anyone who runs a business has been sued multiple times.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. Like I've spoken to loads of my friends. Like there'll be a lawsuit or there'll be some things happening. Like 100%. Like, and you know, in those situations, it's a bit like forgiveness, right? Like it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. To some degree, it's just at the end of the day, like you just want it to be buried and gone, right? And yeah, I've gone through situations and like those guys, every single person I've had an issue with, we're actually friends now. So,
really?
Yeah, it's weird. Like,
oh my God, that's so weird.
It's a weird thing. Like I've spoken to so many people who've had lawsuits. They're now friends with the people that they had the lawsuit.
Well, is it just like the nature of competition? It's just business.
Yeah, it could be anything from even a client complaint to a competitor. So in the US, for example, like people don't know this, but like people get sued every bloody time. Like it's really regular. So if you are like, I'm a UK entrepreneur, I go to the US, it's very common for a US company to sue you. It's just very common, right? It's a very litigious country, right? And do you know what, like, you know, that's why lawyers make a shit ton of money over there. It's all, you know, it's all fun and games. At least someone's making some money, but yeah, it does like, yeah, it's just a game. Like people don't realize, but I guarantee if you're running a company with over, let's say 100 people plus, like I'll be shocked if you not had a lawsuit within the 5-year window. Like I'd be shocked. And it could even come from employees. It could come from like, so you get employees, you have customers, and you have your competition. So someone's going to stick a gun at your face, right?
How did you deal with that the first time? Because school isn't teaching this stuff. University isn't teaching you how to deal with this. Yeah. And you were young. I'm assuming you were probably in your 20s.
Yeah. So I, you know, when I got on the basically front page of FT, or like, because basically Google invested in my company, so he went, Google back company gets sued, so that's what happened. So do you know what? Like, I just laughed.
What?
Yeah, I thought it was funny. Yeah, I thought it was quite fun. It's like, you know, I was okay. So I'd already been on the newspapers in different places, right? But this was
for
another
good things.
Yeah, for good things, right?
Okay,
yeah. So
yeah.
like, we raised money. So I was in all those places. You like, oh, you know, like Bruno Mars goes, oh, I'm going to be on Forbes and stuff. So I did all that like weird stuff, which was nice, right? And this time I was like, oh shit, man, I'm on it for some like really crappy stuff, right? And I know, I just laughed. I just thought it was funny. I don't know why. Yeah, I just laughed because I know sometimes.
Is it because you knew the claims were unfounded? That
yeah,
it was laughable?
It was that. But at the same time, I just, you know, I believe life is just. I've always think it's just a fun little game. Like I don't know. I just sometimes whenever things get quite serious, I just laugh because it. Because I know at the end of the day, it'll all sort itself out anyway. So at the end, I just like, that's quite cool. I'm on the FT for stupid shit. This is quite cool. I'm like, so it was actually quite. So Mills, my brother, and me, like we were just like, I feel like we're like the gangsters, or like bad boys in our startup. So it's like literally like that. So I remember my brother was actually dating at the time when it came out, and he actually he's actually quite funny. But he used to show girls and like dates. He's like, oh yeah, look, that's me, and like they used to think he's like a proper bad boy, like gangster. Yeah. So my brother was like milking it for some reason. He's now got an amazing girlfriend. So shout out to Mitzi.
Lovely, yeah.
And but yeah, it was just, I don't know, like life is just, if you take it too seriously, like it will just get more serious. So weirdly, I've got this skill in me where if it gets really, really weird, I just take the whole piss out of the situation.
Mate, that is a life hack. I know we're having jokes about that, but I'm telling you, that is a really good life hack for happiness right there. Just the sort of knowledge that A, things are going to work out, and B, there's sort of a guiding principle is that you've just got to take everything as part of like the game of life. And if you take it too serious, it's basically your perception. So your perception was like, I can either think of this as like, oh my God, they're going to take down my company. It's going to be, this is going to wreck my personal career. I might never be able to raise again because they're going to see me as a red flag or whatever.
Yeah.
Or isn't that funny?
Funny, mate.
I'll use it for my date.
Mate, what was even funnier? Yeah, exactly. My brother got the upside on it, right? What I found really funny was I think it was like the next day or something. Like I get a bunch of my mates like sending me the link. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Right. So like at the front page of FT is like, nah, mate, I ain't seen it, mate. I ain't seen it. It's like, yeah, it's like I'm having a normal day. So what happens in like, and I'm sure you've gone through this, right? Something really shit happens in the day, right? Yeah. And if you can suck it in and you can make it till you go to bed, you wake up the next morning, you're okay. Like it's just always better the next morning. Yeah. It's the best hack. Like if you've had a really shit day at work or whatever, just get to bed, man. just go to the gym, just like clean up. Like there's times where it's like 4:00. I've had something's really crap happen. I sometimes just go home. It's actually a really good thing. And I just go home, go to the gym, go eat, go do whatever I got to do that day. I don't really like to see too many people if I'm having a really bad time because I hate giving crap energy to people, right? I don't like giving bad energy. It's like a disease, right? So, you know, if you are going through it, maybe talk it out with people. I talk it out with some folks that I trust, but I don't, you know, I'm not sociable, right? I know I'm not. So, and then I wake up the next morning and I'm much better.
Actually, while you were talking about the newspaper stuff, I haven't been front page of any FT or anything like that. I've been front page.
Don't worry, mate. It's not that great.
No, I've been front page of like there was the Daily Mail and there was also the Times, but for good reasons.
Yeah.
But the Daily Mail, they sort of took a lot of my second book out of context. So the second book is called Eat to Beat Illness, right?
Sorry, get that?
Eat to Beat Illness.
Yeah.
It's a play on words. It's like tongue in cheek. Like it's not genuinely about eating to beat illness. If you read the first lines or you read the first chapter or even the final intro chapter, it's very, very clear that what I'm talking about is food as medicine being a treatment or a preventable substance or intervention that we can use. Food qualifies as that, and this is how we utilize all the studies, and you can find out information about how if you eat a certain way consistently you can prevent or reduce the risk of a certain number of diseases that are the main conditions that cost the most for healthcare systems around the world. Anyway, the Daily Mail obviously have Daily Mailified it, like, eat this and then you'll never have cancer, or like eat this and then whatever. So there's all that kind of stuff going on, and that sort of garnered a lot of ill will towards me and the brand. And I remember my reaction to that was the complete opposite of you. I thought the world was sort of like caving in on me, and I went through this experience, and it took like quite a few months, I think, for me to get back on it. And actually, I mean, it was still posting and still keeping things going, but I don't think I was really being true to my heart and my true beliefs. I was always like looking over my shoulder as to like who's going to try and come after me now, or who's going to like try and basically try and go after my GMC, or like my professional,
which is your license, right?
Yeah, my license. Yeah. So all that was pretty hard time, actually, I would say. But if I took your sort of strategy of like everything will work out and life is just a bit of a game, and this is just part of the game that's a little bit weird, it's a little bit dark, but you're going to come out of it, I would have fared that a lot better. I had to learn that the hard way. I wasn't like the next day like laughing at the headlines or laughing at the comments or whatever, but that experience kind of prepared me for things later on down the line. So at another point, there was an article, this is genuinely funny, there was an article, it was a hit piece about doctors in general who do branded posts. Now, I do branded posts on my social media, and they were particularly going after doctors who promote like meat and dairy, or like, beauty products.
The vegans were after you.
Or not the vegans. No, it was after like all those kind of doctors, right? And there was the main doctors who were labelled, I don't really know them anymore, but there was a line about me, because whoever had written this article was trying to just drum up as many people and many high-profile doctors on social media as possible. There was one line about me. Dr. Rupy Audra has also taken money for sponsored posts and branded content. He has been associated with tender stem broccoli and walnuts.
Oh yeah, I know walnuts, Asia and broccoli.
Yeah,
Sick.
I know, broccoli and walnuts. And I was like, I felt like taking that picture and putting it as my profile. I'm proud of that.
That's so
great.
funny. Yeah, by the way, how does that work? So is there like a society like head of like broccoli and walnut, and they all sit in a room and go, who should we give this budget to?
No joke. There's a community of growers association. So the almond, the association of almond growers.
Is it he or she must be the gangster?
Huge.
No, that guy. Who is it? Is it a girl or
no?
a dude who runs it?
It's a whole like committee. It's
so
like
they just sit in a room and talk about.
No, they've got like 400 growers. It's like a consortium.
Oh, okay,
so it's like OPEC. But for almonds.
Oh, sick.
And they have them for different ingredients. They've got them for walnuts, they've got them for mushrooms, they've got them for different types of broccoli.
Killing it right now.
Mushrooms killing it. I actually did some stuff with mushrooms saying that last year. So the UK and Ireland Growers Association, so all the mushroom growers, they all get together and they basically like pay essentially for like a branding organization to help them like distribute more positive content around mushrooms. And obviously like they're coming to me, they're coming to your boy here because I'm all about the mushroom train. I'm talking about ergothioneine, I'm talking about the prebiotic nature of it. I'm like, it's so versatile, it's going to help you, like reduce your meat content, all that kind of stuff. So they came to me and I'm really happy to promote these brands. It's like a win-win for me.
Yeah?
They're
so jokes. I remember like seeing
there's a whole industry.
Yeah, no,
it's huge.
It's so funny. Like, I'm just trying to think what that guy puts on his LinkedIn, like head of mushroom society committee. It's like, imagine bowling in for jobs going, man, like, fuck man, I run the mushroom committee. It's so crazy in there. You big him up. I don't know who he is.
They've got like a lot of budget as well, because if you think about it, I mean, almonds is a perfect example. So almond, there's the California Growers, just not almonds global, just the California Growers Association. I think it's 400 different growers around the California region, and they all chip in a bit of money towards this thing. Dude, I'm not. I wouldn't
imagine their Christmas parties, mate. It's going to be crazy. Well, if you get an invite, get
shots,
me in. I want to go to their Christmas party, mate.
Dude, in 2016, I think it was 2017, they flew me out to California, expenses paid.
Sick.
They took us to Yosemite. Is it Yosemite?
Yeah, that national park.
Yosemite, yeah. So we went to the national park. Everything was like comp. We had like almond on everything. Almond on the desserts, almond on the breakfast. I mean, I was a bit almond out afterwards, but it was delicious, really good.
No, good on you, man. Good on you.
Yeah.
All right,
very interesting.
So we need a wildcard topic, right?
Okay.
So in this pod, you probably hopefully there's a bit of format where
I think the whole thing is wildcard.
It's all
today.
winged, right? Yeah. So I think a lot of people might want to write a book, but I was doing a bit of research around it, right? I've had a few people approach me, just a very low level, like, hey, do you want to write a book on entrepreneurship? I was like, nah, it's not. I'm not in that zone right now, right? But I was like, do these guys make money? Right? And what I found out was that basically if you're writing a book, and you're a perfect guy to ask, you've got multiple bestsellers, right? But I've realized none of these guys make that much money, and they make money in other areas, and it may be a good thing to probably like tell some of the listeners like about the process, right? Like getting a publisher, like I know you get some money, but like is it much money? Because I hear only like a few people have made money.
Yeah, there's not much money at all. I think that when people think about publishers, they think about, you know, the biggest sellers of our time, like the J.K. Rowlings, the Matt Haig's, the David Walliams, like all these people who have like absolutely smashed it and sold millions and millions of books. They are the rarity. They're like it's like in startup, right? So, you know, you think about startup, you think about Airbnb, you think about Gimlet Media, you think about, you know, Spotify, whatever. Dude, they're the rarities. They're not the norm. And it's the same thing with publishing. And so the first thing about publishing is that it's a very old school industry. So it still operates on a very much like who you know. And a lot of publishing is consolidated now. So you have these big imprints like HarperCollins, Penguin, all these different traditional media houses, and they have imprints within them. So I think HarperCollins is something like 40 or 50 different imprints, and they're all different genres. You've got fiction, non-fiction.
So what's an imprint? An
imprint is like it's almost like a mini publishers within the big publishers. Okay. So if you look at like the tree, the umbrella of all these different publishers, they've got all these mini ones underneath, and they each have their own niches. So when I got picked up by Harper in the first instance, I was signed to Thornson's, which is
not the chocolate company.
No, not the chocolate. No, Thornson's, which is like the health and wellness arm within HarperCollins. And I was one of the lucky ones. I got quite a sizable advance of 75k to do one book. Yeah. So that's one book deal, 75k, and that's like money in my pocket, regardless if I sell 0 books or one book.
So actually, on that, right? Yeah. So you get 75k. Is there like a deadline? Because I can imagine like some people getting this cash and going sick, right? And just like chilling, right? So like, is there a deadline? If you don't do it, you have to pay it back? Like they can...
Yeah. There's loads of clauses. It's like a proper, like, you know, contract. 20, 30 page contract.
So what's your deadline then?
So my deadline was...
like a year, 2 years?
It was within a year that I had to deliver. And then it's in stages. So every contract is very different. So you can have a publishing contract that's like everything paid on day one. Usually that's reserved for celebrities, I reckon. But usually everything is phased out. Like
how much are they helping you? So, you know, you've paid... Because like, and this is something else I want to talk about. It's like self-publishing versus publishing, right? But like, okay, so you got this big ass team helping you, right? Like, how much do they actually help you?
So if you ask different authors, you'll get completely different answers. I was lucky. I had a lot of help in terms of PR, marketing, the copy and the recipe development. That was all me. But they sorted out all the photography. They sorted out the best sort of prop stylists, all the locations where we did all the images. They made it look amazing, man. If you see my first book, it's awesome.
No, I mean, all
but you don't understand. Like when you go into a cookbook shoot. So we're specifically talking about cookbooks, but it does apply to like normal prose books as well. When you go to a cookbook shoot, I'm the least important person there. Everything is like a well-oiled machine. There's the home ec, there's the home ec's cook hand, there's the photographer. Sometimes they have an assistant. You have a prop stylist that chooses all the props. You have your editor. You have another stylist. You have all these. There's literally like 8-9 people, and it's usually in a very small studio as well. So it's very cramped.
Is the studio actually within their like publishing house? Then
no, it's all external.
They rent somewhere. Oh wow, so they come to a place like this or whatever.
Yeah,
okay,
they'll come to specific like locations, and on the day of the cover shoot. So I have cover shoots for my cookbooks because they always want me on the front cover. I've actually pushed back for future books actually, but they're always like, no. You need to get you in the cover. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. I'd rather like, you know, do a Yotam where it's just like, you know, like a picture of sort of like the electric colours and the bowls and all that kind of stuff. But they're like, you're not well known enough for that yet. You need to get you on the front cover. Fair. So yeah, like I'm literally the least important person.
Okay, interesting. All right, so crunching the numbers, they're paying you 75 grand, right? Because this is another interesting thing on my research was that you need to sell a shit ton of books before you start making anything extra, right?
So that royalty structure really, again, depends on what your contract is saying. So for my first book, I had to sell 80,000 copies before I got any extra money on the base of that, right? Okay. So that's quite a high amount.
And how much would you get extra for the book then?
So that depends. So sometimes it's 10% of the sale, sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's 20. It really depends on what your threshold for books is. Luckily, I went through that and I get a royalty cut now, but it was very, very high, like very high bar to sell. And I did some research on this actually. So guess how many books sold more than 5,000 copies in 2020.
5,000.
Yeah, more than
Just 5,000?
Just 5,000. Just 5,000.
In 2020?
In 2020.
Globally?
Yeah. Less than 2%.
Oh, wow.
Less than 2% sold over 5,000 copies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you think about that, with the number of books that are published every year, it's so low. And so for an unknown author to have a threshold of 8,000 copies, pretty high bar, and it fluctuates from person to person. The other thing is that you can structure your deal completely differently. You could say, look, don't pay me anything, right? But my threshold is like, I don't know, 1,000 books, and above that, I want 30% of royalties. You could structure your deal like that. And I haven't crossed the numbers as to whether that would have benefited me or not.
Yeah.
Probably would, actually, if it was 75k.
Yourself, right?
Yeah, you're betting on yourself.
Okay, that's interesting.
And then self-publishing is becoming a lot more popular now.
Yeah.
But it's a very different game. So I know people like David Goggins, I think Gary Vee even, and a few other people have gone down the self-publishing route. But you really need to have a core audience that you've grown for years prior to that, because you want a willing audience, like whether it's a big newsletter, whether it's a big social following, whatever it is, you need to have had that community before.
No, interesting. So yeah, like, you know, for me, I found it fascinating. Yeah, the actual money you make is not so much, considering you're spending like a year or 2 years writing, right? It's like, and if you want to write a great book, I know these
cut
folks
as well. Don't forget.
Yeah, less cut, right?
And your literary agent.
Yeah, and you're working like full time. Like, you know, writing a book, you need to be on it. Like you need to be proper on it, like proper zoned in. So you can't really do much other stuff. Yes, you can, but it's just, you need that zone time, right?
Dude,
like,
I was working full time as a GP.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was working full time as a GP. I was doing all my socials. I was still blogging.
Okay, you're just a beast, mate.
And then I ended up doing my podcast. It was a very unhealthy sort of like, you know, grind lifestyle where I'd come back. I actually did some videos of it. I don't think I actually posted it on YouTube, but I did some videos. I would literally come back. I was videoing myself on a GoPro. I was in my suit and tied. I just literally come back from work, and I was like, and now I'm going to recipe test.
Yeah, I know.
And my first book had like 400 references in the back. So it wasn't just like knock out a few, like 100 recipes, even though, you know, cookbook writers, they put so much effort and so much research into each of the recipes. It was me doing 100 recipe cookbook and 40,000 words in the front end. I think the original was 80,000, but it's 40,000 words that I had to cut down to. All reference, all academic papers, everything. It was. Doesn't
sound healthy. Yeah, let's like, you're giving me anxiety. All right, so I think we're coming to that time when our really good friend Amit will be joining us.
Producer Amit.
So it'd be great to get him to join us in the studio. And if you haven't already, please give us a follow on your podcast player to be notified with it when the next episode drops.
I'm nervous. This is the first time we're
we're in person now.
The first time we're getting live feedback.
It's the three mates are together.
Everyone was wondering what this third mic was for.
That's all the way.
Mystery guest was.
So I was thinking of giving Jay some feedback. Are we still doing that bit?
Yeah,
we're doing feedback.
Help me out.
Pull your mic closer to you, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So it's quite interesting. So. Like in terms of rating Jade, like I'm going to go back to uni because like when we were 18, I remember like meeting this guy and he was like, rate me, and I was like, what? Yeah. You said I remember it clearly,
so weird.
and I was just like,
I can't even bring back uni stuff. Like, mate, I know you're my uni mate, right? But like, the past, mate. Like, we're all weird. Why is all my weird shit coming down?
And I mean, it does.
You know what, Amit? Do you know what? Actually, you know what? I don't know if I want you.
No. I'm going to beat it though. You carry on.
I'm joking.
And like,
because you're still pretty weird.
When you're 18, you're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And like, credit to you actually, because I think like one of the topics we're talking about feedback, and then it transitioned into criticism. You're actually very good at taking feedback and then building on it. But yeah, to have that mentality at 18, that's nuts.
That's
amazing. So you mean my 4 yet? I'm waiting for my number. Is
your
it 3,
number?
4?
No, I'm actually. I don't think it was you. It was basically Rich, but I think you're on 9.5. Or you, you started off slow. You started off slow.
You're overselling me now,
mate. The criticism topic, honestly, that was like it started as feedback and then it went into criticism. I thought that was an amazing topic. So Yeah, I think like the things that I took away from that is if you're someone who's having impact in the world, it's basically impossible not to get sued or not to get complaints or not to get haters or not to get the Daily Mail rebranding what you're saying as something which is not. But you can actually like take that hate and think about the positive. So like in yours and your brother's sense, you're like the gangster of the FTs. Rupy's the gangster of the Daily Mail, and like just don't take it too seriously. And I think it's like one of these massive tricks for life, and we think there's a big thing to it, but yeah, there's really not that much to it, because especially like in Rupy's case, like I read your book and I know it doesn't say like eat this and you will beat cancer, but people are writing out there, and at the end of the day, you know what you've written, so you don't need to take it on the chin. And I related it back to my own life, because as doctors, like even if you're an amazing doctor, it's pretty much impossible these days not to get complaints. And like, of course, if people complain, you're like, sometimes you've done something wrong and you need to like own up to it and you need to learn from it, but sometimes it's
unnecessary, right?
Yeah, it's sort of like, I don't blame them, but it's like toxic people putting their stuff out onto you. But you can't really let that stuff stand in your way.
I'm so much more impressed now from hearing that story from university, because I thought that was a learned behavior, maybe from being in the tech world and being surrounded by those people. But if you're asking people to rate you, I know we were laughing at the start, but like if you're asking people to rate you at that early age and actually iterating based on that feedback, which is basically what we tell tech startups to do all day long, you were already looking for those performance indicators to sort of better yourself, whatever that might be. So that's I'm really impressed, man. I'm really impressed.
And actually, like when we first met our producers in person, Fascinate Productions, Hussein was there, and I think it was Hussein, like one of the VC, and he was like, "This is a guy most dedicated to self-improvement," and like it's one thing to solicit feedback, but then like you can't be too precious about it. You have to just take it on the chin and build on it. So I think that's like
he's the one that led Deliveroo Babylon. He's like a good mate of mine, and he lays into me, and I like it. I was like, "Come at me, bro." And he does.
We'll have to get him on the podcast.
He's a good crack.
Definitely. Yeah, and I'm gonna back Amit on the high rating as well. I mean, maybe not as high as 9.5, but like, I would say solid 9. Solid 9. Wow. The improvement.
Maybe it's the in-person thing.
Ridiculous. I think definitely the in-person thing. Yeah. We can't do them via Squadcast Riverside. Sorry, man. Riverside, if anyone's...
They're getting
they're getting 3.3.
The guy who runs this studio is actually sitting there. He's loving it. I can see he's smiling.
Vox Podcast will put a promo code in the show notes.
You might give us some free time, right, mate? I'll hype up your place.
I want to see your negotiation skills in practice.
So another topic was leaving as CEO, and funnily, when you guys were talking about it, I was thinking about like mimetic theory at the same time as well. So like on one hand, you've got like chasing prestige, and this is what everyone is doing, and then on the other side is knowing yourself and knowing what really makes you happy and what like brings joy to your life. And like I think the bit you guys may have missed in that story is at the time that I'll rewind a little bit before that I do think entrepreneurship and being a founder is like the most glamorous thing you can do right now. It's probably what finance was in like the 1980s and the 2000s. Like
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Like everyone wants to be this guy.
You wonder why we try. We rinse you so much.
Finally.
I'm putting it out to you're getting a big head now, man.
No, I'm not.
8.4.
Guys, man.
Amazing.
I love your summaries, man.
Thanks,
I'm telling you.
Appreciate it. And thanks, Fascinate Productions. I know we've got Rich here, so I want to thank him as well.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, good. I think this was a good one. Yeah, and it's nice to do in person.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
I think we're going to do another episode here as well very soon. So
if they can bring down the prices.
Guys, it's jokes. All right, awesome.